Close my closet. Looks ugly. All right. Also, screen. Share my screen. There's a question here. Are you aware of the issues with quiz 6? Well, I've had several students asking me to unlock it for them. Is that what you're referring to, Jacques? Jacques, are you there?
Hi, Professor. I'm just going to talk instead of typing.
Sure, go ahead.
But a few of us noted what we considered to be issues with the auto grader of the quiz 6 and having errors.
Oh, okay.
The two main, well, there's a couple posts, so you'll be able to see it, but the two big ones are that we think incorrectly. One of the questions is like, what is rec dot and then XYZ? A lot of us put params, but the auto grader thinks it's param singular.
Oh, okay.
And the other one is when we're defining the endpoint, we have like colon name or colon section ID, but the auto grader just has name and section ID without the colon.
Got it. Yes. No. Yeah. That one I did see. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. I'll take a look at that. Definitely. Thank you. All right. Let's see. Welcome everybody. We are in our last week. Today was supposed to be Patriots Day, but since we did have a care day last week, we are having a lecture today. That's fine if you were not able to come today. This will be recorded and you can take a look at it a little later. So today I was thinking of wrapping up the project, seeing if you had any questions that we might want to discuss together. If not, I was considering taking a look at creating a login, very much like we did for Node.js and Mongo. I was thinking perhaps we could do the same thing for those folks that might be using Java instead and MySQL. So those are the things that are perhaps the things that I might want to discuss, but I did want to leave it open to for you folks to just ask me things in general. So yeah, so that's a plan for today. On Wednesday, we meaning this coming Wednesday, we're thinking of doing a review for the exam. I will go through sample questions from previous final exams, and we will solve them together, and then you can have that as a reference, and you can use that for studying. Yeah, so that's the plan for this week. The exam will be available starting next Monday. It'll be available for several days, and then you can take it any time at that point. The project, instead of making it due this upcoming Wednesday, I did move it to next Monday, the 26th. That's the same day that the exam will be available. Just to give everybody a couple more days, and even over the weekend, finish up and wrap that up. The grading for the final project will be one final demo with the TAs, and they'll go through the rubric, asking you to demonstrate each one of the points in the rubric. I know that several of you have deviated a little bit from what the rubrics might say and have asked permission to replace one feature for another feature, and we've given you permission, so make sure that when you do come to the TAs for the final demo, that you have all that very well documented. And again, there should be a post that you've made it, a private post that you've asked for permission to substitute one feature for another feature. And for the most part, I've accepted whatever your proposal might have been. I don't believe I don't believe I've said no to anyone. Usually it's hey, how about I do this feature instead of that other feature? How about I can replace this requirement for something else? And most of the times I believe we have agreed. Just be sure to bring with you any exceptions that we might have given you, so that when we are grading you and that final demo, that's well documented. For the most part, we're just going to believe you if you tell us, yeah, you told us that we could do this, then, and the other. For the most part, we're just going to take your word for it. And so but definitely make sure you know exactly where you stand on that. What else? So yeah, so that should be happening all next week. The TAs, obviously they can't grade everybody at the same time, so they will be opening up slots where whenever possible, for you to be available, or they be available. And obviously some folks will go first, some folks will be going last. And I mean, we don't mind folks to do some tweaks, last minute tweaks to the project in general. But any changes you make, you have to be careful not to break something, right? That right before you're going to demo to the TAs. And you should also you should be ready to be graded at any time after Monday the 26th. Okay, so yeah, there's after Monday the 26th, there's no excuse on if you broke it or anything, right? You have to be very careful not to do that. All right, so there's a lot of chat here. Let me go over some of these chat comments. Could you please go over the logistics of how the project will be graded now that it's pushed back? I believe I just answered that. Cheyenne, is that, did I answer your question? I hope I did. We haven't covered update for MongoDB. Could you go over that? Update for MongoDB. No, we haven't. Okay, we could do that. Hypervisor, I'm still confused on the log and logout state management from backend to front end. Okay, we could do that. But a lot of requirements are based on the state of whether the user is logged in or not. Okay, yeah, I was hoping to do that today. Yes. So is post for adding something, put for updating, and get for reading? Yes, that is correct. Oh, and deleting, there's a delete. There's a HTTP delete. And I thought we covered that. Will project demos start from the 27th now? Yes, so 27th from the morning all the way to all that week, right? Including the weekends. Obviously, that's going to be a little bit of a logistical challenge, making sure that everybody's available at whatever time and time zones and whatnot, right? The TAs as well, they also have other other things that they need to take care of for their own courses, right? So they also have to make sure that they are available to schedule it. Will you also extend A8? I don't know how far. I think we've extended it quite a bit. I'll take a look at that. There are 2 QAs, Q5s in Canvas. Were you supposed to do both? No, there was supposed to be just one. Really, just 2 of them. Okay, let me take a look at that. There shouldn't be. There seems to be some problems with the quiz answers on quiz 6. Yes, I know. I'll take a look at that. Yeah, just hold on a second. it's really hot in here. Just a second. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so let's see what can we. Yeah, I'll take a look at what's going on with quiz 5, but my understanding that was just only one. Yeah, definitely don't do the Angular, and the Angular quiz will not count at all. The one that we intended for the quizzes was the ORM and the JPA. Please ignore anything that has to do with Angular. Please ignore. Also, the answers to quiz 6, I believe Jacques mentioned it, that there were some discrepancies on the auto grader. So we'll be doing that manually. Okay, so there are two things that are being suggested here to go over, and looks like which match with what I was hoping to do today on doing a user management, right? So somebody logs in, and as they are logged, they see different types of content, whether they're anonymous, whether they are logged in, whether they have a particular role. You show one thing or you show something else. So I was thinking perhaps we could definitely do that. Here's one is about, yeah, so definitely don't do anything with Angular. All right. Okay. So yeah, let's see where we are with some of the projects and the what we've built so far. On last week we talked about user management, and the way we did it, we had the backend was Node.js, and it was MongoDB. We created schemas for users to register, right, and then maintain session with the currently logged in user, and we started working on the front end. We didn't get too far on the front end, so I like to continue doing that. I like to show and discuss how is it that you would control what the user sees, whether they're logged in or not, and what role are they playing, and use some of that profile information to drive some of that logic. And last week we played around with maintaining session on Node.js, right? We use express session. We configured the session. We also use request.session to store things in the session and to retrieve things from the session. So now I'd like to kind of do the same thing, but the backend will change. The backend, instead of being MongoDB and Node, we'll change it to be Java and MySQL. Now the front end should be unaffected, right? The front end doesn't really care whether you're implementing a RESTful service with Node and Mongo, or if you're implementing with Java and MySQL, or if you're using C#, right, and SQL Server, right, or Oracle or Postgres. Doesn't really matter, as long as the API is the same from the user's point of view, from the client's point of view. As long as you're providing the same RESTful API and the same session management and blah blah blah, right? As long as it's HTTP and JSON back and forth, right? The front end doesn't really care what the back end is implemented as, right? And that's the beauty of these tiers, right? That they're fairly well disconnected and independent of each other. Again, as long as the interface stays the same. So let's see where we are with each one of the projects. Right now, we're going to focus on the React client we worked on together last week. I believe we had implemented a register page. We had implemented a login page. I'm not quite sure if we got to the profile page. We'll see. But then on the server side, we'll implement the data model using Java and MySQL as a database. Okay. All right. So let's backtrack and see what we've got for the React side. Yeah, looks like we had. Right. It looks like we had created a couple links for registering and logging in, and a couple of components to handle a login, register, and profile. Right? I believe we first worked on register. We implemented this component that provided a couple of fields, right? The input field for typing in your username, another field for typing in your password or 2 passwords. We didn't do any validation, but that's pretty easy. So I'll leave that to you. And we had suggested that users can select their own role, right? Although this part is somewhat unrealistic, right? It's unlikely that we would allow folks that when they're registering, they would choose to be either faculty or student. More realistically, probably there will be some admin user that decides whether you are one or the other. Okay, but since we're an academic environment and we just want to learn how is that the UI is driven by the by the role, right? We're not so much as interested as replicating all the admin stuff and all the roles that an admin user would have to provide, right? I mean, that definitely would be fairly complex. So the easiest thing is for to test this is for users to be able to choose their own role, right? And then use that to drive everything else. Okay. Yeah. So that's the strategy we're going to take. We're going to have users are going to provide their own role. And so once they registered, I believe we created here a small fetch that sent the request to register to a backend, presumably listing at port 4000. This was implemented with the Node.js server listing at 4000, exposing a post API to register. And we sent the user, presumably including the username and password in it, and we parsed it out from the server. We looked up the user. If they weren't there, we created it. Otherwise, we came back with some kind of error. And I believe, not sure if we, yeah, exactly. If we were successful, we would programmatically navigate to the profile, right? If not, then we would just, if the server sent some error, we would not navigate to the profile page. Let's see. There's a question on the chat. I think you need to have credentials include to make the session work. Yes, correct. Yep. So yeah, so this would not work as Jack is suggesting here. We are missing one property here, and to include credentials include. Very good. Yep, thank you. Yeah, so we'll need that to participate in the cookies that are going to go back and forth. Okay, excellent. So yeah, so that's the register part. When we went to the profile, we once we land on the profile, we have to go fetch all the information about the currently logged in user. And here as well, we are missing that part. We are missing. Presumably, this would be a get where we're retrieving the profile. Right, presumably because we are only doing a read-only operation. Although it's a good practice whenever we are handling profiles and credentials and passwords and things that are encrypted to instead always use posts, right? Not use get, and anything else but post. Post allows us to include all the content that is going back between the clients and server to be embedded inside of the body, right? And because inside of the body, first of all, it's you can include a lot of information in the body, but it can also be encrypted, as opposed to if you do a get, you are sending all the information in the URL, and the URL cannot be encrypted, right? So even though here we're doing a read operation from the profile, it's a good practice to even if it's a read operation, which we would normally use get, to also use post, especially if you're doing security issues here, right? So we're going to say that we're going to do the method is post, even though a get would be plenty. And so any data that is now going to come back from the server, right, is going to be in the body. And it could be encrypted. We're not going to encrypt it because I don't have HTTPS, right, in my server, but it would be ready to be encrypted if we had credentials and keys and public keys and private keys and yada yada, all that. We don't have any of that. It definitely would be encrypted if this would be hosted on Heroku and you would pay for the service, right? Heroku, to achieve encryption, you just have to add the S for secure, HTTP secure here at the URL, and then it would be end-to-end encryption, right, between the client and the server. But that is only if you pay for the service. You have to have a paid account as opposed to the free accounts that you've been using all semester. So anyway, so you have the method is post, and we're going to say that credentials include as well here, include. Okay. All right. What else? Obviously, none of this HTTP requests that are going on between the client and the server. None of this should live here, right? Instead, right, we know that a good practice is to move this to a service file, right? So any communication should be in a service file. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So once this comes back with a response from the server, we're going to parse out the content of the current user, presumably, and we would use the current user. We set it to a local state variable, which we can then display the profile information, right? And perhaps we might want to just display here just to see what's coming back from the server. We can stringify what's coming back, right? And this would be user. Let's display it. Anyway, so let's work on these two pieces, right? The registering and the profile part, right? You understand what it is, right? You register. If it's successful, right, it pushes you to the profile. If not, it stays in the register page. Okay, and in the profile, you would have the capability of logging out, right, of seeing things that are either public, right, or things that only an admin should be able to see. Okay, all right, let's do that. Okay, so on the server, we're going to have the following. Let's see. We had only worked with widgets. Oh, looks like we did something about users. Let's see what we've got for users. All right, looks like we only play around with username and password. Let's just extend this a little bit so that we can store it in a database. I don't believe we have a table for storing users in a database. Let's see what database we're using. Looks like we're using localhost webdev SP21 schema. Let's look at MySQL. Okay. And let's see, I believe it's this one. WebDev SP2101, SP2101. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. I think you are using Mongo. Yes, localhost 4000. Correct. We need to use the 8080 port. Yes, thank you for reminding me. Let's see what tables we have. Okay, we only have widgets, and we want to add users to this, right? So let's do that. Let's go back to user, and we'll need a couple things in here. We'll say we need an ID, right? For the username, password, we'll add maybe a first name first and string last, and maybe email. All right, let's keep it simple. And let's add here a, let's generate the additional setters and getters that go along with this. Okay, perfect. And let's annotate it so that it's going to map to a table that is going to be called just users. Okay, and we annotate this as a ID. There we go. And we don't want to have to generate this value, so we're going to delegate that to the database using the identity strategy, which is basically in MySQL is just auto increment. Okay, great, that's enough. Let's restart the server, and we should see the create command being issued from the server. There it is. There's our create table users. Okay, and if we go back here and refresh the schema, we should see the users table right there. Perfect, excellent. So currently there are no users, right? Let's close all these. Close the tabs. How do you close all the other tabs? There we go. There's a question that says, what happens if a user's name is longer than 255 characters? You can give a size. You can override the size of a string variable, which is going to be converted into a varchar. So for instance, email here, you can look at the default. Default is only all 255, but you can override, right, and say the first name. You can say column, and you can say, you see the default is 255, right? So length, you can say length is, I don't know, 1024. So let's refresh. Let's rerun the server. I don't think it changed it. Let's see. Let's refresh. Yeah, it didn't change it. So some things it can change, some things it can't. So let's drop the whole thing. Drop the table. And let's restart the server. Yeah, so when there are changes on the schema, subtle changes like this, oftentimes it does not change it. So there it is. See that? If it recreates it from scratch, it does change it to the desired size. So if you go to users and you look at the size, see now that it's 1024. See that? So you can override that. Okay. That make sense? Because maybe that's why we always limit the number of the characters on front end. Oh, well, no, you can change it. You can absolutely set whatever size you want. Okay, so let's keep going. So we want to be able to create, find, and things like that, right? So let's create a repository for this user. So we'll need class. Actually, it's an interface. And this will be user repository. And we'll need, we'll extend a CRUD repository. We're going to CRUD users, and the primary key is integer. Okay. Convert, create, implement, what, user, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's the one. Okay. We'll need a couple things here to find by username. We need to find by username and password, right, for login. So for now, because remember, user repository provides some default implementations to retrieve all the users, to retrieve a user by ID. But we actually, to do registration, we need to make sure, we have to verify that the username doesn't already exist, right? So we need to be able to query the database to see if the username doesn't exist. And when we do a login, we need to search users by username and password. So we need those two things, right? So let's implement those two. So we'll see the queries. The queries will be something like this, right? So query will be something like select user from user where user.username is equal to username. Okay. And this will be a function. We're going to wrap that query. We want to use this query. We're going to wrap it so that it'll return one user. Find user by username, and we'll pass a parameter, for the username placeholder that we have here, and we'll pass it as a string username. Okay. All right. Excellent. We want to do something similar for login. We want to be able to find somebody by username and password. So we'll say find user by, we'll say credentials. Where we're gonna find, we want to find a user that matches with the username and matches with the user password. Is there a user that matches username and password? Okay. And we pass in the parameters just like we did here, but for the password. So this is password, and this is password. Okay. All right. So we implemented those non-standard queries, right? Remember, we get the standard ones: find all, find by ID, delete, right? Save. All those are out of the box. But these, we want to have these additional queries that we want. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, so once we have that, now we can implement something that wraps this into a higher into a controller or a service, right? A good practice is to wrap this inside of a DAO, and then on top of that a service, and on top of that a controller. Okay. And we can go into why is it a good idea, but we're kind of short on time, so I'm just gonna put it inside of a controller, right? But ideally, you want to split it up into those three layers, right? The controller, the service, DAO, and the repository, right? But again, we're short on time. I'm gonna shorten that into one single thing. So I'm gonna create all in the controller, and we'll say that this is the user controller, so user controller, and we want to register, right? Let's start off with register. So this is going to be exposed as a RESTful API, and one of the functions we're going to use that repository we just created, and I think we called it user repository. There it is. And so we're going to use this repository to register folks, right? We're going to say, public find user. We're going to say register. Okay. So let's see. So we're going to register passing the credentials, and the credentials is going to be captured in a user object, which includes username and password, right? So we'll call it, and we're going to send it over in the body, right? That's how we're sending it, right? In the register, notice that we're sending the user in the body, okay, to API register, right? So on the server, this is going to be mapped to a post mapping, right? Just like that, because we're using post to API register. So the mapping is to API register / okay, running at port 8080, right? This server is not running at 4000, it's running at 8080, right? And the data that I'm passing along are the user, which includes username and password, right? There's my username and my password. That's what I'm passing. Yes. Okay. So why is this going to react? No, I don't want it. What is that? Okay. Just these two. Okay. Right. So we get a user object here, user, and I'm going to call it credentials. because I don't care about your first name, your last name, your email. I only really care about the username and password fields that are embedded in the user. And where am I reading this from? From the body, right? So from the request body. So I'm going to parse the body from the request. I'm going to map all the fields into this local user object. Okay, excellent. Okay, so we want to find to see if the user actually exists, right? And so so let's see, we're going to use the repository. We'll say repository dot find user by username, right? We only don't really care about the username, right? And it's inside of the credentials dot get username. Okay. And this will come back with a user or not, right? So this will be user existing user. All right. And so we want to know if this user exists or not, right? If the user exists, if the user exists, then we don't want to create this new user, right? If the user does not exist, we do want to create the user, and we want to log them in, right? So we also need to add them to the session, right? So we're going to bring in the HTTP session as well. HTTP session. Session. Okay. So yeah, let's do that, right? So if existing user, right, is null, then we're going to create the user, right? So if you do not exist, we're going to create you. Otherwise, we're not going to create you. Okay, so we're going to say if existing user is null, then we create you using the repository. We say repository dot save the credentials. Right? Maybe this maybe a better name for this might be a new user. How's that? Refactor new user. Okay. We save, and we're going to return that user. So otherwise, we're just going to return null. And null will be a flag, right? It will be a flag for the client to, to maybe post some error message saying, the registration didn't really work. I'm sorry. You try another username. Okay. All right, so that's register. Let's try it out. Let's see what we've got so far. We'll put some breakpoints, see if it works. All right, a couple other things we'll need probably. We'll need course, CrossOrigin. Now, because we're using credentials, right? We can't use star. Can't use star. This is we're passing cookies. And we want to maintain session, so you have to explicitly say where is this request coming from, and I believe it's coming from localhost 3000, which should be running somewhere here. I guess we never ran the client. This is not running. I thought it was running. I think it's localhost 3000. Yeah. Okay, let's copy that. And we'll say right here, the request is coming for local 3000. Okay, and here's our register page. We also need to, let's see, what other options. There we go. So we have to say also allow credentials. Allow credentials true. And what else do we have here? Methods, origin, pattern, blah, blah, blah. No, okay, I think that's it. So is a question chat. It's if person A and person B are accessing the front end website, and the front end website accesses the server, why isn't the cookie the same to the server since both requests are from the front end? So what happens is that when the client when the browsers, say it's two browsers, actually I can demonstrate. But basically, you have two browsers. using the same user interface, right? One is doing it from Spain and the other one's doing it from Italy, but they're going to do the same HTTP request to the same server, okay? Because they are coming from two different places, right? Each request is going to go out to the server, and if this is the very first time ever, right, that these two folks are accessing the same server, none of them are going to provide a cookie, right? So the server is going to look at one of them, the first request, and says, you don't have a cookie. So the server is going to send back a cookie in the header, okay? And it generates a random cookie and sends it to person A. Same thing with person B. Person B arrives and they say, you don't have a cookie, so they're going to send a random cookie to person B. And the cookie protocol is that if the client, if they agree, if they go to the same URL, right? They commit to sending that cookie that the server sent back, right? So that now person A, when they send the cookie, will be cookie A, and the server will say, it's you again, right? And so, yeah, you get session A, where person B sends cookie B, right? And so they get session B. So now they're using two different sessions. So this session object, will be different when it comes from person A. It will be different when it comes from person B. That makes sense? So that session object is keyed off of the cookie from each one of the persons, and they're randomly different. And it's called the session ID, basically. All right. So yeah, let's run this, and let's put some breakpoints, I guess. Let's actually let me start this in debug mode. Let's put a breakpoint here and a breakpoint there, or maybe here. Let's put breakpoints everywhere. Okay. Yeah. So let's register. Let's look at the query that's coming here in the network. And let's do ADA 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's see, register 8080. Did it make it to the server? I don't know, did it make it? It looks like it didn't make it to the server. Is the server running? Oh, looks like the server died. Wait a minute, let's see what's going on with the server. Closing GPA, blah, 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 application run, why did it fail? Wait a minute, you run again? Connected to target VM, address, yada, yada, yada. Oh, it's dying. What's going on? It was working seconds ago. Blah, 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 demo application, yada, yada, what's going on? User controller, unsatisfied dependency through a field repository, yada, 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 user controller. Name, user repository. It can't see user repository? User repository, auto-wired. You can't see this? User repository. User repository, there it is. Interface, user repository, CRUD, user. It is the correct user, is it? Yes, it is, right? Yeah. Let's see what it doesn't like. Let's see, unsatisfied dependency error, creating bean with name, user controller, unsatisfied field repository. Okay, error creating bean, user repository, define, blah, 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 blah. The user repository define, yada, 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 validation, public, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't like my user repository. Validation, yada, yada, yada. Illegal argument, exception, validation, fail for blah, 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 blah. Find user by username. Okay, so it doesn't like our find user by username. There's something wrong in my find user by username. Okay, let's take a look at it. Find user, find username, param username, string username, select, let's see, select user, oh, user. Sorry about that. Got it. There we go. Try again. User, blah, blah. Okay, let's see if I still get the error. Hope not. Okay, no error. All right, let's try it out. Okay, let's go back here. Let's refresh. And let's send the data again. So data, 1, 2, 3. And let's click on register. Course, okay, we got a course error at least. Let's see, it's a different error. Console, blah, blah, blah. Let's see, access denied, yada, yada, yada. Localhost 8080, API register from Origin, register localhost 3000. Has been blocked by course. Response, blah, 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 blah. No access control, Origin, header in present, blah, 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 blah. Let's see. Let's see my controller. We'll turn on my controller. Origins. I do have CrossOrigin. Localhost 3000. Did I misspell it? I don't think I misspelled it. Localhost 3000. Localhost 3000. Allow credentials true. API register. Am I sending the information? Let's see. API register. Is that where I'm sending the requests? Network. Let's see. Local authority. I'm passing username, Ada, password. Is that spelled correctly? Username, password. Let's see. And the user is username, password. Yeah, looks right. When it doesn't match the mapping, sometimes also gives an error because it could not convert the JSON that we're sending to the data that you're expecting. And it is API register, right? And it's a post, presumably. We find options. Let's see. What was the options? It doesn't say. It doesn't say whether it allows post. I think it might have been upset since your core source ended with a slash. Yeah, let me see that. Let me try again. Yeah, course is sometimes is a pain to debug. And my register, okay. Let's refresh. Okay, so this time it went through. Yeah, I must have had an extra slash somewhere. Okay, so let's see. So in the new user, we do have hopefully the username and password that I sent, that bogus QWE. So it's going to try and find the user. It's going to try and find a user. It's not going to find it, right? So existing user is null, which is perfect. And let's before we do anything, let's see if we have any users. Let's refresh. Okay, we have no user whatsoever. So presumably this is going to save, insert the user in there. So it's going to insert. I'm going to continue. And if we refresh, notice that indeed we have the user that we wanted in there registered. Okay. In the client side, we got the user back. Hopefully, let's preview. Notice that it came back from the server. The ID is 1, which is perfect, right? That's exactly what we want. Now the logic on the client of what to do when we get a user might not be correct. So let's head over to the client. So on the client, when we register, what do we do? Let's see. So if we get the actual user, we should push to the profile, basically, right? Did it try to push to the profile? Probably not. Something this might have timed out as well. Oh, use history. Looks like use history did not work. Something wrong with use history. Oh yeah, no, yeah, that's wrong, right? The way you use history is that you declare a variable. History is story, and you call use history. Use history. There we go. Once you have history, you can use history history to push the profile. All right, let's try it again. Let's try it again, and this time around, let's refresh. And I don't think we need to do this anymore, so I'm going to I'm not going to step through the whole thing again, right? So let's try again. Let's refresh, and we'll do ADA and ADA 1, 2, 3. We'll say register. Okay, notice that it went out to the profile, right? The browser is asking me if I want to save my username and password. So it navigated to the profile, which that's what we wanted. And in the database, presumably, it created ADA. See, there it is, ADA and ADA 1, 2, 3. Perfect. So now that we went to the profile, right? Somehow we need to remember that we're still in a conversation, right? This is person A logging in, registering as Ada, and person B registering as Alice, and we want each one to have their own session, right? So that means that in the server, we need to remember that, hey, for person A, this is the user, and for person B, this is the user, right? So before we save to the database, what we'll do is that we'll store it in a local variable user, or maybe we can even store it in the same new user, right? We can just notice, because the new user that's coming from the client only has username and password. It doesn't have the ID of the user that has been stored in the database, right? So this one now is going to have not only the username and password, is also going to have the ID of the user, right? And we're going to save that to the session. We're going to say session set attribute, right? And again, here you can store it anywhere you want as long as you're consistent. I'm going to store it in a variable called profile, right? In a key profile, I'm going to put in there the new user. Okay, all right. I'm going to store that. So meaning that later when we navigate to the profile, we want to go back, right, to the server and say, hey, it's still me, right? I'm going to give you the same cookie. So it's still me, not person B. It's still person A, and give me who's currently logged in, right? And so we're going to do that here in a profile. We're going to say post mapping, and we'll say API profile, and we'll give you back the current profile, right? So we're going to say public user profile. And we're going to return whatever the session is, right? Return the session. Let's grab the session, HTTP session. Right, session. Where do we store it? When you register, we stored it in profile. And so we're going to give it back to you. I'm going to give it back to you here. Let's say session get attribute. Now we're going to read from the attribute whatever we stored in there. Okay, and you need to cast it to the original object that you put in there, right? So it's user. Now this, if I try to get the profile without having registered or without having logged in, right? I'm gonna get a null, right? Which makes sense, right? If I try to go to my profile page without having logged in, I'm gonna get, well, I don't know who you are. Why is that a post? So the profile information might contain information in there that might be private, okay? In particular, it includes the password, right? That we probably want to clear that up and just remove the password whatsoever, but it might include other things. It might include email, phone numbers, and just whenever you are encrypting things and using HTTPS, right? It's a good idea just to use post in general, right? In this particular case, we could use get. Right? But in general, when you're doing credential stuff and security stuff, it's always a good idea to use post. All right, so this is going to embed the content inside of an HTTP body. It's going to send it back, right? Now I'm going to restart the server. That means that any cookies, any session information is going to get lost. So I have to do the whole thing again, right? Now on the client side, when I get to the profile, I'm going to do the API profile to 8080. Okay. And notice that I need to say that I want to use the same credentials that I used, just recently, right? The same cookies that I used to register, it's the same cookie that I'm using here to retrieve from the profile, right? And so that I know it's person A or person B, right? So that if person A, B register from a different browser, they're going to get cookie B, right? So they're going to get profile B, right? And so we can demonstrate this with two browsers, like with Chrome and Safari, right? So let's do that. Let's restart the server because I just created a new. Okay, on the client. Well, now on the client, we're going to do what? Wait a minute. On the client, what we're going to do? Let's see. We're going to get the profile. It's credential. Yeah, and credential include post. Yep. The current, and then we're going to store it in a local user state. Perfect. And we're just going to display the user, and if they roll, oh, we need a role. We need a role, right? We'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, so let's also restart the server because we have that new service, right? We have that new endpoint, the profile endpoint. Okay. I guess I should start it with in debug mode because I do want to demonstrate for you the session, the cookie session. Okay, so let me put a breakpoint here, and let me put a breakpoint here. Okay. All right, so let's have two browsers open. Let's put this below. Let's go to register, and let's open up Safari. And let's have Safari running on the right-hand side over here. And let's go to localhost 3000. And here we're also going to register. Okay, let's bring up the inspector as well. How can we bring this to the bottom? Can we say bottom? Okay. Yeah. Network. Let me say network here as well. Can we make this a little smaller, maybe? All right. So here we're gonna register with person A with whatever password. I don't care. And this is gonna register with person B. With whatever password. Okay. And so I'm gonna register with A. And let's put breakpoints on the server. Let's put breakpoints. So both of them are going to end up here, I imagine. So here comes person A, and we do register. So there we are, right? Session. If I hover, you'll notice that it has a session ID. Actually, you can see it here. Right, session ID is E3C something 7748. Okay. If I continue, it's going to come back to the profile. Oh, it didn't come here. Why didn't it come here? I was hoping that it would come here. What happened? Let's see. Invalid character, yada yada yada. Invalid blah 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 blah. Error parsing the header. Oh, we did something wrong with the header. Let's see. What do we do with the header? Credentials include method post. Credentials include. We definitely need to say that it's a JSON that we're going back and forth. We forgot that, right? So it's content type. It's JSON. Application JSON. Let's try doing that again. I think we probably registered anyway. Yeah, I guess I'm going to blow away person A. Say delete and apply. Suppose let's make sure person A is no longer there. Okay, perfect. Let's try this again. Let's register again. And Safari, let's clear this. How do we clear? Okay, clear. Let's say for A, and this is B. So register. We're here. So the session ID is 7748. Wait, is it the same one? Yeah, 7748. Let's continue. Still doesn't like my error parsing HTTP request header. Profile, post mapping, API profile, HTTP session, user. What is wrong? What are we sending? Let me see what we're sending. What are we sending? Headers. What doesn't like about my headers? Profile, blah, blah, blah. Localhost 3000, application JSON, yada, yada, yada. Strict profile. What don't you like? Let me try doing a get instead of a post. Let's see. Get. And let me go back. Get mapping. And let me go here. And so, but then, right. So this would be, I'll still do a get. I still do include. I don't believe I need the headers. I do need the credentials include. Let's restart this. And let's go back to register. And let me kill person A again. For person A, I'm killing them all the time. Apply. Okay, let's try it again. A. Let's do this. Register. Session. What is wrong? Invalid character method. Method names must be tokens. Method names must be tokens. It doesn't like my get. What am I doing? Method get. Credentials include. Profile. What am I missing? What's this? What's this? Headers. Include. And it's here. Oh, is it? Register. I'm wondering if it's going into like it was going into an infinite loop and it's hitting it multiple times. Use effect, blah, 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 profile, yada, yada, yada. HTTP. Okay. Let's put a breakpoint here as well. See that, make sure that we're not getting into an infinite loop. Source, components. Let's go to users and profile. Here's the profile. Let's put a breakpoint right there. Right, that's where the query to the fetch is going. It is a get. Okay, let's see. Oh, 13 errors. Oh, look at that. Posts, profile, profile, profile. Oh, it looks like it did get into like this infinite loop. Okay, maybe that's what it was. Okay, we refreshed. Let's try again. Go back. Let's do another A. And let's continue. And still, okay, we're here. We're about to do the get. We're about to do the get. We haven't yet. And we are getting the error. Oh, HTTPS. What? Why am I doing HTTPS? Definitely not HTTPS. Definitely not HTTPS. Maybe that's what it was. Let's see, there's a question on the chat. So if you're sending a cookie and no body, should I still use a post? I would prefer to use a post. Yeah, I'm trying to debug this. Let's see if let's refresh on this. Oh. Okay, HTTP. Okay. Let's try it again. Let's try with AAA123. Register. We're here. Continue. And still, HTTP doesn't like it. Console. Warning, a component of access to fetch from origin. Yada, yada. Oh, okay. So access to fetch at profile has been blocked. All right. So it doesn't really like a profile. It thinks it's a star, but it's not, right? It's a course. Fetch at a profile from origin 3000 has been blocked by course policy. Responsive doesn't pass access control check. The value for access control allow origin header in the response must not be a wildcard, but it's not. It's not a wildcard. It's not a wildcard, I don't believe, right? We fixed that. We said origins is localhost 3000. Let me just restart. And let me just restart this. Okay, let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Let's go back. Let me do a hard refresh. Connection refused. Okay, well, that's a little better. All right, the server is crashed. Okay, let's see what's going on with the server. Error, blah, 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 blah. Request mapping handle defined. There is already, oh, looks like I already have an HTTP session examples that uses that method. Oh, okay. So it looks like I already have a profile. Looks like I already have a profile somewhere. Okay, let's see if we can find it. Find in path. Oh, there it is. We have two. You can have two. Okay, that's what it is. This is an HTTP session examples. Okay, so I'm just going to change this to 2. I'm going to restart the server. That's what it was. Yeah, we had two API profile that are competing against each other, right? And the server is confused because they map to the same exact get API profile. All right, let's go back. Let's refresh, hard refresh. And AAA444, register. We're here. We continue. Okay, this time around, it did work. I noticed that it's going to the profile, retrieving our profile. We did continue. And on the client, there we have it. There's our user. See, there's AAA4444, right? With the username, high power, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's from this browser, right? And we can verify that the user did make it in. There it is, AAA444. If we are in a different browser, right, such as this Safari, right, we do BBB and say register. Not now, save. Okay, so probably we didn't refresh this. Let's refresh. No, not here. Go back. Let's go back and register. Register. So BBB321, blah, 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 whatever. Register. No, don't save. And notice that indeed now we're able to log in. See that? And so now we have two users, right? AA444, and we have user, BBB321, right? Notice that if I refresh, notice that it still remembers it's the same person. Notice that there's no information here anywhere where we're storing that information. It is exclusively on the server, right? And if I refresh from Chrome and I refresh, notice that I get AAA444, even though they're hitting the same exact URL, right? They're hitting the exact same URL and they're rendering different things. Okay, notice the same URL, but one of them is getting BBB and the other one's getting AAA. Okay, because that information is exclusively being stored on the server. Anyway, I would definitely go back to post, but I'm going to leave it alone, right? I definitely prefer post instead of get. Right, so right now we are displaying the public content, which is fine, right? I would show public content if somebody comes to my profile, right? And everybody wants to see maybe my headshot, okay? And maybe that's all I decide my application of what the public content is. Other content might be if somebody's logged in. If somebody's logged in, then I can see my personal stuff, right? Or based on the role, right? So there's several things, right? I can navigate to somebody's profile by their ID. I can navigate to my own profile, right? My own profile just by logging in. And I can somebody visiting somebody's profile, because they know their ID, and then they can see only the public stuff, right? But if I'm logged in, I can see not only the public stuff, I can see my private stuff, and depending on the role, right, I can see maybe other things depending on the role. So there probably could be another version of this profile screen. It could be a different version of this profile screen that allows me to navigate to somebody's profile, but using their ID. Okay, so for instance, I might have an app. I might have another. I might have a profile here, right, which contains an ID, profile ID, right, user whatever, user ID, something like that, right? That goes to the same profile. And in here, I could retrieve that ID, right, using things such as params, use params, right? So import use params from React router DOM, okay? And I can retrieve the user ID, right? You can say const user ID from use params. This is like an anonymous user visiting somebody's profile. The anonymous user is not logged in, but they might be reading reviews. They might be reading things that other users have posted, and they click on their link and they navigate to somebody's profile. Yes? And the only way they navigate, right, because it's not their profile, they're visiting somebody else's profile, okay? You need the user ID of which one you're navigating to. Only somebody who's logged in could they navigate to their own profile that you don't need the ID, right? Because that information is stored in the server, right? So yeah, so if, so here, this fetch is to get the profile of the current person who's logged in. But if I have an ID, then I want to retrieve somebody else's profile, right? So this logic might be something like, if I have a user ID, because it could be that I'm visiting my own profile, so I don't have an ID. So if I have a user ID, then I do a fetch, a normal fetch, right? I do a fetch profile, and this would be slash, and this would be user ID. I'm going to somebody's profile. There is no cookie, right? Because this is presumably coming from somebody who's not logged in, or I'm visiting somebody else's profile, right? So I need to know their ID. Okay, and so this would be an else, right? So now this else like that. I think I have too many. Wait. Oh, okay. Sorry. That's that else. And we have the closing of this and that, like that. Okay. All right. So now if I come into the screen, the anonymous user, or maybe your buddy wants to visit your profile, right? Your friend, then they would be using this ID. Should you change the one back to post? Yes, I would change it back to post. Okay, so this query would go out to the server, right? We need to implement it. Okay, and in user controller, you would have another version of this, which would be that if you ask for a profile user ID like that, there's no need for the session, right? Because this is not like I'm looking for my profile, right? I'm looking for somebody else's profile, right? We read the path variable, user ID, okay, into an ID here. So it's an integer ID. And we can now retrieve the user from using the repository, which is, there's a find by ID, which comes out of the box, right? You don't need to do anything. You just have ID, right? You're going to do a get, right? And that is the, not find all, find by ID. There we go. Okay, so this is useful when you're visiting somebody else's profile, or somebody's not logged in is visiting your profile, right? If they know your ID, they can reach you. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's restart the server. Okay. All right. So yeah. Now, not only do we have a profile, notice if I do a profile now, this is going to come back as null, right? Because I'm not logged in. I haven't registered. Okay, but now I have another one, right? I can visit somebody else's profile. One. I don't know. Do we have one? No. We definitely have 8, right? No. Wait, what? We do have 8. Why is this not rendering? Let me see. Let's debug it. Inspect. Let's see. Source. So this is profile. Okay, let's come here. Let's refresh. So we should have a user ID. There it is, 8. Okay. If user ID, all right, we're going to do this fetch. Oh, I don't do anything with it. I'm not doing anything with the fetch. So what I do with the fetch is I do the same exact thing, right? I'm going to parse the JSON. Parse the JSON and do the current user. Actually, so that's a bad name for current user, right? Okay, so now this should work, right? There we are, right? So so we're visiting somebody else's profile, or maybe this is an anonymous user visiting your profile, right? So here as well, we can drive. So now you have two pieces of information, right? You can tell whether if I'm visiting somebody else's profile or if I'm visiting my own profile, right? Because I can fetch I could do something like for instance, I could say I can always fetch the current user, and if I have the current user and I have a user ID, if it's my own, then I can view my my personal information. If the current user ID is different than the ID in the user ID, then I should not be able to see the private information. I should only see the public information. Okay, and also depending on the role, right? So probably we always, right? We always want to fetch this information, right? And just keep it around, you know, who's the currently logged in user, and depending on whether we have a user ID, right? We decide to check to see, right? If it's not the same user, then we don't show the private information, right? So there might be public content information, right? There might be private information, right? So you might have it at different components. So content, public. You might have some private information here as well. So you might have private content. So private content. So this might be import React from React. This is const private content. And this just returns whatever, right? Private content. Export default private content. Okay. All right. So in the profile, what you might want to do is always fetch the current user and just store it. Just store it in the current user. Fine. If in addition there is a user ID, then you can then you can make decisions on what to render, right? If the current user's ID is the same as the user ID that you have in the user params, then you show the private content. Okay. If it's not the same, that means that I am visiting somebody else's user, right? And I should not display the private content, right? So I might do that, right? I might say, so this logic right here probably might want to live where? Right, so I'm always going to fetch the current user. I'm always going to fetch the current user. Right, I'm always going to fetch the current user. Okay. And so now I'm also going to ask myself, do I also have a user ID? Do I also have a user ID? And so if I have and it comes back, right? When it comes back, this is the other user, say, right? This is maybe we should call this other user. Let's see how would it work. Let's see. We have the current user. Let's call it other user maybe, right? So user, and let's call it other user. Now, obviously, if the IDs of both of them are the same, then obviously it's the same person, right? And so yeah, so this is a set other user. And we'll call this, let's rename this as well. Okay, so now we can drive things such as, right, you know, if the user dot ID is equal to the other user ID, right, then we can display the private content, right? If they're not, I'm just visiting somebody else's profile, right? Right, so let's play around with this, right? Let's restart this. Let's see, is there a question in the chat? No. Okay. And let's go back here. So let's refresh. And let's see, there's a error console. On-call promise, unexpected JSON input, blah, 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 blah. Profile 18. Fetch profile. What's wrong? Let's see. Oh. Network is even going. 8. Profile options. Preview response. 8. Do we get somebody? No. You need, okay. Response. I'm getting an error. Website credential. Probably because we're not logged in and this is not coming back with anything. Let's see. Let's try the server. Let's see. The server is profile here and here. So we refresh. Profile get. It says that it's doing the get. Yeah, it says it's doing the get. Options 8. Profile 8. Why are you not? Let's step through it. All right. Let's see. Source. Let's put a breakpoint right here. Okay. Profile get yada yada yada. Response. Oh, probably this response is going to come back as null and it's not going to be able to parse it, right? Okay, so probably we need to put it like a catch. Let's put a catch here and say catch error. Do console log error. So we can see if we can step through that error. Let's refresh. Okay, let's put a breakpoint on the catch. Let's see. And all right, set user, create user on the fine. Okay, that's good. Property role on the fine. Oh, okay. Looks like we had a role logic here. Role. So if user, let's say user, right? And there's user role. And here we might say if there's a user, right, and user ID is equal to other user ID, then we show the private content. Let's try that again. Let's continue. Set users undefined because I haven't logged in. Oh, it looks like we're in an infinite loop. Oh, I forgot to close the square brackets. Do it again. Okay. All right. Notice that public content, right? Now notice the public content. It's only showing public content. It's not showing the private content, right? But right, if I log in, let's say I register, and I register as whatever. Okay, I register. So I'm here. Save. Okay. And what ID am I in? The ID that I just created is number 11. So say I navigate to 11. Okay, notice that because I'm navigating to 11 and I'm 11, I show the private content. But if I navigate to 10, notice that it doesn't show the private content, right? I'm showing somebody else's information, right? It's not me. But if it's 11, then it's over here, right? Now the only issue is that, well, what if I don't have an ID, right? It's me. Why aren't you showing my private information? Right, so my logic should be slightly different here, right? This should say I only show the private content if what? Let's see. if I have a user, right? If I have a user and there's no other okay, so if there's no other user, because if there's no user ID, right? If there's no user ID, then other user would be, say, null. Okay, so we initialize the other user as null. We can say, so if there's a user and there's no other user, then I also want to see my private content. I can combine this into an or something, right? ID of null. Okay, so right. So if there's a user and there's an other user, right? Okay. So yeah. So it's me, right? I'm visiting my own profile, so I can see my private content. If I visit myself, 11, I all can see the private content. But if I go to someone else, 10, I cannot see the private content, right? And so same thing by role. In role, you can also say, well, depending on your role, you can see certain things, right? So admin. So let's add a role. Let's add a role to the server. So if we go to user, and let's add a private string role, right? And we can generate that. Generate setters and getters, the role. Okay, if we restart, now on the client, we need to be able to, when we register, set the role, right? So in register, the drop down here, we can say, on change, we could say that the we're going to set the user. We're going to copy the old user, and we're going to set the role to be equal to e.target.value. And the values here are going to be value admin, faculty and student, and faculty. Okay. All right, we have that. And so when we navigate to the profile, when we are in the profile, right, we can say, well, if your role is admin, then we show the admin role, the admin content. If you're not, then we don't display it. Okay. All right. So let's see. Okay, register. And so let's try, AAA admin. So admin. So let's register. Save. I don't know if it saved the role. Role null. Okay, so that didn't work. That didn't seem to work. So did it create the? Let's see. Role. Okay, didn't seem to. Probably never passed the role for some reason. Let's see. Let's see if we're passing the role. We can look at the network and see what we're sending. Let's try again. Register. Let's continue. Let's see. User ID. We're going to fetch the profile. Let's see the user that we get back. Current user looks like role is still null. But we can see the network what we sent when we registered. There's our posts. Let's see what we sent. Looks like we're not sending the role. Looks like we're not sending the role, and that's probably what's going on. So we have to figure out why are we not sending the role. Let's see. So set user on change. So select on change, set user, yada 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 yada. So for some reason this is not working. Okay, role user role. Why not? Register, yada, yada, yada. So let's put a breakpoint right here and see why are we not sending that register. Let's see. So if we take a look at the register, register.js. So here's our fetch right here. There's our set user. Why is it not working? Set user role colon e.target value. Why is that not working? Let's put a breakpoint there as well. Let's put this in a curly bracket so that we can put our breakpoint right there. We might need to store here the variable before we set it. Yeah. So set it to roll here. So now we can put a breakpoint here so that we can see what's going on. Let's refresh. Actually, let's go back to register. Okay, we're back in register. Not that, register. Register right here. No, not that one, this one. Okay, let's put a breakpoint right there. Right here, so let's admin, faculty say, register. Okay, role. Okay, so that's faculty, looks right. Let's see the network. Uh-oh, looks like something went wrong. Warning, a component, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. So network, we register, get, something happened. Why did it not, wait, did we click on register? I thought we did, didn't we? Oh, no, I don't think we actually posted. Okay. All right. Set user. All right, looks like the role's still null. What's going on? Why is the role not working? Oh, is it because we're using the same user in the username? I bet it is. User. Oh, we're not pat. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, because I didn't change it. Change it. Role faculty. Continue. Register. User. Okay, now we're definitely passing the role right to the server. Definitely. Click on that. Hover. All right, we got the role. We got the role. Okay. So continue. So definitely in the database, we are setting the role. Refresh. There it is, faculty. So that works. So here in the private content, we might have logic saying that if you're in the profile, something like if your role is faculty. Oops, sorry. If your role is faculty, right, then you can see the admin content, right? But if you go back to register and you register as something else, right, and as a student, and you register, notice that it doesn't show it, even though right, you do have a role, right? Notice that you have FFF as faculty, but this one's a student, so you don't show the content, okay? Obviously, we didn't get to login, but logging is pretty much like register. And with login, you would have something like this on the server. So on the server, for the user controller, you would have login. You have something like add posts mapping / API login. and map to public user login, where you are going to retrieve the user by its credentials, right? And this is credentials. You're also going to need the HTTP session, because presumably the user is going to, if the user exists, I want to make them I want to put them in the profile, right? So we're going to find the user, the existing user, presumably, by credentials, and the credentials is going to include the credentials username and password. This is get password. So we're going to ask if the existing user is not null, right? Is not null. That means that the user exists, and this should be the current user. I'm going to make him the current user. Profile is the existing user, right? Otherwise, right, we maybe return null, and this null could be used in the login page to pop up an error or something. Okay, maybe nothing else. You just return null. And here we set the, and then we return the existing user. Okay. So based on this login, the client can say, well, if I get a user, that means this was successful, and I navigate to the profile. And when I get to the profile, the user will be in the session, right? That means that when I get to the profile page, this will come back and bring me the person who I just logged in as. Okay, right? Something like this. On the login, right, you have the username and password, right? And obviously you would have you would need a use state, and you would need use effect. No, actually, you don't need a use effect. And here you would, you'd have user, set user, or credentials, set credentials. As use state, right? You initialize as 0 as nothing. And as you enter your username and password, right? On change, you update all this, right? You say, set credentials. You copy the old credentials, and you update your username to be e.target.value, and do the same thing for the password. So that when you click on login, you log in function, which when you implement it here, is you're going to post, right? You can say const login, and you say fetch, the same place where we've been fetching, right? All these guys, right? But it's a post to log in, and we do need the credentials. We are going to pass you the content as JSON. What content? The credentials, right? So we're going to say JSON.stringify the credentials. Okay. Now when it comes back, hopefully response, this is the user or not. If we get the user, this is the correct user, right? The existing user, right? So if there is an existing user, if there's an existing user, then we're going to navigate, right, to using history, we navigate to the profile page, right? From React router DOM, we get the history, right? We navigate, history dot push profile. Same thing we did with the registration, right? Navigate there. Okay. All right, I'm going to push this, and and you can obviously, you're free to use any of it or none of it. If hopefully this helps. I'm missing something. Login, yeah. Return. What am I missing? Login over here. I have an extra bracket. There we go. All right, I'm gonna push this, and then you can use it for yourself. So, is it a bad practice to persist the user object using Redux? Oh no, not at all. It's actually, if you're gonna use user multiple pages, then definitely a good place to put it is in the reducer, so that other folks can use it. Yeah, definitely. It's always for security purposes, it's always great to go and have the server actually decide whether you're logged in or not. But if you're working with several components that are all related to one another, or pages are related to one another, then certainly the reducer is perfectly fine. Could you also show how to implement this difference between anonymous and login? We did. Right? We saw that when we are not logged in, we can navigate to the profile and have an ID, and then it would come back as that user, but you would not show the private information. So we did show that. Quiz was closed. Okay, Jiao, just send me a text and I'll open it for you. You can always text me at 978-761-5752. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Professor?
Yes.
I think what I meant is could you mind showing the difference between anonymous and login profile using Node backend, like if time permitted or during section 2 tonight?
Yeah, section 2, we can play around with it in section 2. Yep.
Because your code, last week, your code is fully based on Node.js. So I think it's yeah. And we didn't cover so much the CRUD operation on Node and Mongo. So, but I'm using Mongo for my project. So
I'm pretty sure we did.
I think homework 8 is just to find some users and create, but not update or delete, kind of.
Yeah, no, what I mean is that we took a look at using Mongo models to do all the CRUD operations, all of them. Maybe not specifically for users, but for in general, we implemented the whole. But sure, we can take a look.
Yeah, okay. I will attend the section 2 tonight. Thank you.
Bye bye.
All right.